Hello, welcome to the EP7 podcast. You are here with Rachel Donovan and the founder of EP7, Mr. George Helou.
Thanks, Rachel, and thank you for joining us. We love talking about how to get the heart into everything we do to get a lot out of life.
Whether it be relationships, business, careers, you name it. So, let's get started.
George wanted a passionate topic tonight.
Sure do.
For our podcast. And I don't know if I'm going to give it justice how you just described what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, all right. Okay. Everyone is looking at this world and they're deciding what's important to them, right? But how do we know that the way we're seeing this world and what we want from it is really hitting the core of what's important to us as an individual? Because right from the get-go, we're being told what's important and we're being told how capable we are, which means we end up dreaming small because everybody else normalizes what is good to go after and what isn't, and why we must be dreaming to think anything beyond that. And so, and even if there are people with bigger dreams, their doubts are so strong that they end up on a cycle of struggling to meet any form of requirement to get there in a timely manner. So they become disillusioned and they learn not to bother. They get sidetracked.
So when you say we're told what to strive for and what's important, who's telling us, or where are we getting that from?
Everything. I mean, if you think about when we're first born, how the eyes that our parents see the world through is what we are modeling. You know, we're molded into seeing the world the same way, because the whole idea is they're passing the baton down to us saying, here's the world we're in. Let's help you deal with that world that we're in. You know, so we talked about worldview, right? Well, it's like, here's the world, not, sweetheart, I'm seeing a world in a certain way. Some of it's probably not that good. I want to give you the best of the worldview that I have, where you're worthy, capable, and abundant. But I'm not there yet fully myself. So as you grow, you're going to realize that about me too. All our journey is about really challenging where we choose not to feel that worthy, capable, and abundant. That doesn't happen in general conversation between parents and children. True?
Yep, very true.
A child grows up, has their lens of this world is shaped, but there's not much left of the core of who they are as that innate genius to express as a beautiful gift to this world. Look, I honestly believe that this world is so beautiful, so amazing, if only people could be true to themselves and give the best of what's inside of them to each other and the environment. But what about that cunning fabric of ideas that says life's too hard for you? You're not equipped to make it something special. See, it's easier to fight ISIS than it is the enemy that's hiding within you, telling you you're not good enough. You're not capable.
Because we've had it all our lives, so it's like it's not even, you're just so used to it.
The whole identity is shaped from the beginning. Before you even knew what you're about, you're already in this kind of emotional state, and the lenses that feed that state are already in place, but they were all learned. So what's disheartening is that you've got millions and millions of people, billions of people, and they look at this world and they're making choices, and not once do they get curious that just maybe they're meant to dream bigger, they're meant to think differently. Maybe they're that beautiful and that powerful.
So what is the best way to be able to notice this and to
I honestly think this is the hardest thing, because denial is nasty. Denial is a brain going, there's nothing to see here. And it's so emotionally attached to avoiding that world of uncovering whether there's more. It's just so hard. I mean, I remember I wrote a blog article on denial. It was the least read article of every article I ever wrote. Because the people who are not in denial will probably read it, but the people who need it the most weren't interested. But change the title to, is someone in your life frustrating you with their denial? Then it'll be the best read article. You see, we never think that we're the ones that maybe have the issue of needing to change, when really 99% of the time, even up to 100%, the responsibilities for us to change, even though someone else may be wrong. How we choose to be, feel, react to it is our responsibility, and it's within our process to make those changes that will determine what we experience. So, it's okay that someone's doing the wrong thing by you, but if you just decide to feel rotten about it and angry and blame them, you're the one taking yourself on that dumb ride. And that's your responsibility to leave the problem with the person. You've heard me say this before, So this denial thing it's disheartening, Rachel. It really is. I mean, nobody wants to believe they're in denial. But you know what? I'm in denial. I'm in denial
About what?
That's a good question. This is the problem. The moment I know what I'm in denial about, I've removed the denial. In any given moment, whatever we don't know about what's blocking us is what we are in the habit of being in denial about.
Okay.
So then the question is, how do we be, like your question and my question to myself too, how do we get curious, suspicious as to where perhaps we've been blindsided and where we're just assuming things are the way they are just because they are that way. They've always been that way. And I think what we should be looking at is look around you where things are happening that don't apply to you, but you wish they did. So look at where love, where career, where thriving businesses, look where those things are happening. Because if people are on a thrill ride of achieving and living their own purpose, you are designed to be able to adapt in the same way. Your brain is meant to rewire so you can emulate the very same identical thinking that is allowing them to think, feel, act, to compound into the destinies they're having. So I would look at everything around you that speaks to you of, initially we think they're just lucky and they went at the right place at the right time. Someone made it easy for them, maybe gifted them the business or the opportunity or whatever. So the brain tries to, with denial, go, yeah, but they probably had rich parents, or they probably had this happen to them, or they just fluked the right industry at the right time.
Or is it things such as, do you include it as things where you're like, well, that's because they're really intelligent?
Yeah, that's a good
because
one. Like, in other words, they must be just gifted with intelligence to know. Is that right?
Yeah, or in saying, because I'm not as smart as them. So, that's why their career's better and they get paid more.
Yeah. But what is intelligence? And we were going to talk about this at one stage, multidimensional intelligence. And if we touch on it now, I think we should definitely then dedicate a podcast to this. But genetics and this idea that your intelligence is gifted, look, it's a tricky one, because I do know we see these prodigies that are so young and suddenly they're playing concert piano like, you know, someone who's done it for 80 years. Like, it's really confusing. It's like, well, how did that happen? How did that 6-year-old, you know, just suddenly flow? And how do these young people who are barely 8 or 9, suddenly they're writing music? But do you know, if you were to deconstruct what they're doing, you will discover low stress. In other words, they're not stressed. They're fully relaxed into giving their all. They're being very present with what they're doing. And they're persistent. They're obsessed. They're immersed in what they do. And some of them, at that young age, it's almost as if whatever their parents gave them genetically as a starting point was an ideal optimized platform to give them that prodigy thing. But I am of the firm view that we all have the bioengineering and design and the genetic code to take on any gifted ability if we decide it is so important to us, we're going to prioritize it consistently. Anyone who's immersed, like every time someone gets interviewed for doing something great, they appear to us as if they got there overnight. But then you find out they've been doing it for 15 years and they had so many setbacks, knockbacks, failures, you know, but they just loved the journey because it was rewarding them enough to keep at it along the way, just for the art of it even. We always have those stories, but we don't spend too much time on appreciating that if any of us had dedicated and immersed ourselves to that degree, we'd also achieve that. So anyway, going back to this intelligence, I believe that whatever platform we weren't given would soon be inconsequential in our flow and that we would eventually just establish our own platform. I believe that. Why do I believe it? Because there's enough people who started and accessed their genius at a late age. 30 years of age, 40, suddenly they turn to composition and suddenly they're writing concertos, but they started late. And all because they decided to prioritize it and make it important to them. So this whole thing about intelligence, intellectual intelligence is changeable. In other words, you can literally improve your IQ just by practicing problem solving and learning the principles of critical thinking and just flexing that muscle through puzzles and equations and situations. Now, but emotional intelligence is so important because how you understand how you feel and how you're able to manage your emotions and how you're able to tune into other people's emotions and read their body language and adapt and allow for insecurity to be a factor in what influences their behavior and therefore how you need to validate and respect where they're at with their mood. You can actually inspire people into changing their moods as well as you inspiring yourself to change your mood. Now, that is an incredible skill. And if you develop that skill, suddenly your relationships go to a whole new level where your influence and your leadership is second to none. That level of intelligence is the way to create a very meaningful life because people are everywhere and how we deal with each other is so dynamic and so intense in emotion that if we know how to turn those emotions into satisfying emotions, then we've got ourselves a successful, fulfilling life, right? And then there's this other intelligence, which I feel that we're being muted from, Rachel, which is higher intelligence, where flow comes from. It's the intuitive intelligence, which we seem to embrace, this gut feel, this gut instinct. And everyone that's reaching elite levels, they claim that they have to trust their gut. And we can develop this. And this is what we do in EP7, step 4, intuition, right? But this intuitive intelligence, I feel, is the closest to this higher intelligence, because if intuitive intelligence is allowing you to know things before they happen, things that are too far for your senses to read, in other words, telepathic power, right? So you transcend distance and time with your ability to tune into information to help you be informed. That is knowing. And higher intelligence is knowing the big picture of who you really are, why you're here, what it's all about for you and for us. And if you come from that perspective with everything else you do, talk about optimizing your choices and channeling your energy into these beautiful ways of being that finally matter. They matter, because what is the big picture? We can argue, it's all philosophy, what the big picture is. But maybe there are clues. Maybe there are clues like, what if we're supposed to love, and therefore every time we're not able to love, it's because we're denying our nature because we think we're in danger. But how often are we really in danger when we're losing our shit over a difference of opinion, where suddenly we're wrong and we can't handle it? Some of those assumptions that make us get highly stressed for the wrong reasons, we're more intelligent than that. We just have to point to the details of it, and then anyone in their right mind will go, yeah, what the hell was I doing there? Well, who's that's able to look at the low intelligence of that performance? It's obviously the higher intelligence of your perspective out of stress.
So in times like that, it's emotion and that sort of thing that's clouding.
Yeah. I think that intense emotion is dictating how we're meant to perceive and feel about something. It's almost like we're locked in to a preconceived way to relate. And the whole idea of being detached is to give yourself license to entertain that maybe the moment could be experienced differently with more empowering emotions versus fear-based ones. And on the odd occasions where fear-based is legitimate because you're in danger, well, that's fine. But gosh, flogging the fear-based path when 99% of the time the opportunity to love is meant to be the focus, and we're shutting down, pushing away, polarizing our thinking. See, we lower our intelligence because of this. So, which basically means, as a human race, individuals are really, really intelligent. So a child is so plastic. They mimic, they learn languages so fast. And then they get to a stage where they're told, no, this is the way it is. And the brain goes, I thought it's all about what can be. No, this is the way it is. And so the brain, when it's constantly bombarded with what adults say is the way it is, it loses its ability to entertain what can be. And to be intelligent is to always look at how you can innovate around something with less effort, less time, less resources, right? So how does this all tie into denial? Well, the tragedy is that it's all normalized with denial. It becomes, you can live a whole life without ever entertaining the idea that you're better, can have more, and life can be richer for you emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially. We're in a box, it's quite tight, and we cruise there habitually, and that's just life. It's just life. And when I've done my homework and I see the magic in every individual in the way they're ordained to be amazing, and I see them cruise at the lowest altitude compared to who they really are and what this life can be for them, it's sad. And when you see them deny and block and look the other way, yes, free will, you know what I mean? I think, though, that the world is changing. I think
in what way?
That there is a convergence happening where the younger generation are rebelling against the dumb, adult, institutionalized ways of living, and they're deciding to build micro houses because they don't want the 30-year mortgages. They're deciding to be entrepreneurs because they don't want to work for some powerful corporation that dictates what kind of a drone or cell battery they are to function as. This is how they see it, right? And they're already in touch with the abundance of capabilities through apps and internet and all these tools and social media. So they're already watching how they can create something that can have an instant market. So I can see that more and more people are going to no longer allow the old way to be dictated to them. And they're not going to fight it, Rachel. No, they're just going to create their way, and their way will make the old system die because there's nothing to feed it anymore. Do you see that?
Yes. I feel like in general, like a lot more people are now starting to stand for things or not just follow the one way.
Let me give you an example.
People used to.
Cooking shows are showing people to be passionate about cooking things that are healthy and tasty, and they're allowing you to feel like you can be almost like a chef in your own kitchen and for each other. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, and there's a huge tsunami of that starting to unfold, is saying, banks, your global monetary system doesn't have to factor for us. It's huge. That's epic. That's actually the biggest one, I think. People are starting to offer little businesses to their neighborhood. And, you know, I'm hearing that local currencies in areas where people are trading with one another with their own currency so that the money stays, this is actually being discussed. And people are moving into councils who want this, and they're becoming members of council. So, and this is now. So what's going to happen when even the younger generation come through? The world is changing so fast. So while I'm here worried about denial, I think the younger generation are smashing it. But the problem is the older generation look at it as rebel without a cause, anarchy, you know, and maybe it isn't. Or maybe partly it is, because some people rebel just because they hate what they're seeing, but then they don't have the imagination to create something that's more meaningful, so they just fight it. Yeah.
Rebel for the sake of it, which is, that's different.
But yeah.
No, you've brought up a lot of points I've never really thought about before. The denial one has, I don't know, makes you think.
I hope it can, because we're all in denial. Because if you weren't, you'd be fully actualized in feeling your worth, your ability to be comfortable in your own skin from moment to moment, which means nobody's criticism touches your well-being. And whatever they have to say, you're able to pull out the best of it. Like, do you remember we said the 4 different ways to deal with a criticism? And we talked about bad delivery and bad content. Content was actually the biggest opportunity, because that's where you could shine the brightest.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So if you're constantly in touch with your worthiness so that no bad content and bad delivery was ever missed as an opportunity to create abundance and the depth of relationships, what would your life be like?
It's a goal, yeah.
So therefore, exactly. What a beautiful goal. But then that makes us realize that whatever prevents this is where we're in denial about. Whatever's preventing that journey.
Well, that's a good way of being able to pick up on it, I guess, when it's happening.
Look, I don't know what this world's going to look like I just know there's an equalization going to happen where more and more people matter, more and more people do wonderful things for each other. And suddenly we're rich in our own neighborhood and we don't need global stars. We don't need idols to worship because they're on the Hollywood screen. Actually, look at Hollywood starting to show its rot. It's dark. Yeah.
Still festering, yeah.
Like, see what I mean, Rach? These institutions are falling apart. But why now? I mean, this is interesting. Decades of this stuff happening, how does it get masked for decades and decades? And nobody's asking, why now? Why now? I think that the environment there's a tipping point being created. And so when I talk about convergence, the convergence changes the environment. So suddenly things that were held up by a foundation, that foundation's not there anymore. So it just takes, it's like a deck of cards being stacked up and then you just knock one out and the thing starts to crumble. I feel like that's that's happening. So maybe these big shifts are going to create, are going to shatter denial. Maybe that's going to be a huge part of it.
It could be.
Because we blindly trust. We're in denial. We blindly trust. So like you were asking before, what do? Look around you. Anything you like, anything you wish you had, any achievement that resonates with you as an experience you desire. What if you could have it? And when the resistance starts to show up, that no, maybe it's not for me. It's the brain trying to move you away from it. And it's kind of like, well, where's that coming from? I think that's the journey to start to confront, why wouldn't I unpack me in the context of that opportunity so that I could start to understand more how I can have it. And yeah, maybe I just choose not to have it towards the end because it becomes there for the taking, but my heart's not interested. Yeah, fine. But how do you know if the heart is not used to being satisfied, it's the brain wired to not serve it. And it's locked into a denial that the heart is a luxury that just can't be satisfied in a lifetime. And that is the ultimate prison. The prison you don't know is there, caging your heart from feeling the depth and meaning of life. And that's why I have an objection with denial, Rachel.
I was just about to say, I'm beginning to see why you have this issue with denial.
Yeah.
And I get it, yeah.
I've flogged that horse enough. It's like a woodpecker.
I think you've really driven it home, but for a very good reason, you know? So. Yeah.
All right, well, maybe we can wrap it up with, let's hope you shatter your denial every day.
Yeah.
Cool.
I like that. Thanks for listening to us on the AP7 podcast. We look forward to chatting with you soon.
Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on another AP7 podcast. If you liked what you heard, remember to share and subscribe so you're notified of every podcast released. If you have any questions or would like to connect with us, please jump on the AP7 official Facebook page. We'd love to hear from you.